Because he used to say, that means he consistently said it. You know, when you say things consistently, that speaks volumes in terms of what your mindset is and where you're at, what your value system is. I'd once mentioned the name of, there's a verse in Mishlei, in Proverbs, where King Solomon says, how do you test the purity of gold? You put it into a smelter. Then you know exactly, or the purity of silver. Then you determine, how much dross is in the silver. And how do you test the purity of iron? You put it through a smelter. And how do you test the purity of man? This is King Solomon's words. Ish lefi malolo. Each man according to what he praises. So Rabbeinu Yonah, in his commentary on Mishlei, explains the two ways to understand that. What does it mean? Each man according to the way he praises, other people praising him, or it means what he personally praises, what he personally reveres. So he explains, it's speaking about the person himself. Observant person, meticulously keeps the Torah, does the mitzvos. When you get into a conversation with him, all he talks about is material values, which are not in sync with the way he lives his life. And you have another person who is not so careful in the spiritual realm. When you speak about purpose and objective and perspective, he's always praising God and praising the spiritual values. So there's a question. If you are what you seem to be, because that's the way you live your life and you behave, so why are you talking only about the material? Why don't you speak about the spiritual? And the person who doesn't live his life so meticulously within the spiritual, so why does he speak? His perspective is so much the spiritual. So that's what King Solomon's saying, that even though in the physical, you may not be in sync with what you say, the essence of person is what you praise, what you esteem, and what you verbalize. That's what he says. So he says a person who's not that observant, person could be, for many reasons, not observant. He doesn't have the background, he didn't have the environment, he didn't have a good experience, whatever it may be, but he still praises spirituality, praises God, speaks about values, which are true values, morals, ethics. So he says the essence of that person is a good person. It happens to be, unfortunately, he's off because of whatever you may attribute it to. Influences in his life, background, whatever it may be. The other person who lives like an observant Jew, but yet he only talks about the physical, doesn't talk about the spiritual. You know what that says? It says it's only coincidental that he happens to be an observant Jew. His essence is not that. Because if his essence was that, why does he talk about everything but what he should talk about? See, it's not in sync. So that's what King Solomon says, Ish lefi malolo. Each man according to his praises, what he praises. What you praise, that's the essence of what you are. So when it says in Pirkei Avos, he used to say, that was his credo. That meaning that was his essence. And he always said it every day. I'll give you an example. I have an expression always. Hashem runs the world. That's it. For good or bad, doesn't make a difference. You want to have it a little more in the vernacular, God calls the shots. No matter what. That's it. That's life. But why, what, when, we don't have all the answers. But bottom line, God makes those decisions. And that's why things are the way they are. And we have to do what we're supposed to do. And that there's no other answer. I always say to people, why does the heart have 4 chambers? The person says, because that's the way God created the human being. Do you know why? No. Evidently, for some reason, God felt that would be the best way to create the heart. So you see, you don't have all the answers. It's because that's the way God wanted it to be. says you don't understand why, but it is because that's what God wanted. It's in many areas, which you don't know the why, but you accept it because that's the way it is. But that's only you accept it if you understand that God is the one who makes the determinations at every level of existence. He's the determinator. We are in the playing field, and we're given opportunities to make choices. Hopefully, we make more better choices than bad choices. And that's what life's all about. But ultimately, each man is what he praises. Do you have liability if you do the wrong thing? The answer is yes. But what is the core of the person? We're talking about the core. The core is what you praise. Certain student of the yeshiva was maybe 15 years older than I was, and he was a very special person. Passed away, he was a young man, he must have been in his 50s. And he had a yeshiva in New York, and he wasn't that successful. He never had more than 15 students. And he was a very special person, a tzaddik type person. And he was a great Talmud Chacham, but sometimes, regardless of how great you are, people don't succeed. And he had a malka in the winter to be a fundraiser to underwrite his small yeshiva. Our yeshiva was not a young man. He traveled specially. Shabbos was out early, and he flew to New York to be able to attend this Malav Malka. That's Saturday night, you have like a festive meal, and it was a fundraiser. And he went specially to acknowledge this person, to show to what degree he valued him, which was considered a great honor to this person. So when he came back, he said over something that this person had said at this event. We find the Gemara tells us in one location, there were many Tanoim, members of the Mishnah period, Mishnaic period, they lived very long lives. And each one was asked, why did you live so many years? One lived 140 years, one lived more. It was a time where it was double the lifespan of a person, maybe 3 times the lifespan. And each one gave his reason. One gave a reason, and everyone, what he said, he says, in my life, never did anybody ever precede me in the study hall or left later than I did. I never, ever referred to a person in a pejorative way. In all my days, never. Everybody who spoke said, in his life, never. How many people could say, never? Very few people. That means they were always consistent. Not, you live 140 years. In those years, every time you never failed, ever. How many people could say never? Very few people could say never. And because they were perfect in that area, they said, never, all my days of my life, that's where they buried that longevity. So personal we all vacillate. Some days are better, some days are worse. So there's no consistent infusion of that special mode of behavior or spirituality, mitzvah performance. My mashgiach, he was the dean of men. He had studied in the Mir Yeshiva in Europe. And he would give Mussar lectures. Besides, he taught a class in Talmud and many other things. So he was giving this Mussar lecture during the week. And when we first moved out into the country in Baltimore, the building was a 3-story building. It was one of the first buildings they put up, and the Beis Medrash was on the top floor, and there were lightning rods on top of the building. And he gave a fiery Mussar talk, and he said, when you say the Shema in the morning, there's an earlier time, according to some opinions, and you could say it later. So he said, in the past 40 years, I never said the Shema later than the Mogen Avram, which is the earlier time. And as he said that, lightning struck the building, and the building shook. Yeah? As he made that declaration, in the past 40 years, never did I ever fail not to say it according to the earlier time, according to this particular position. And as he finished those words, boom. It's like the building, like a bomb hit the building. So that Busser talk was known as the thunder and lightning talk. That's what it was coined on the tape. You understand? It's like never failed. Never missed a day of davening in my life, unless I was not well. How many people could say that? But some people could say it. And that's special. My father always prided himself, although he had tough years. He was born in 1920, was an orphan, lived through hard times. He said he never, ever took anything that was not rightfully his. And he prided himself in this, that he never took anything that was not his. Another thing he prided himself, he says he never, ever lied in his life. Those were the two things he prided himself. Never took something which he had no right to, or spoke non-truth. That was his pride and joy of himself. People speak through six sides of their mouths. Yeah, it's a good thing they have orthodontic or braces. Otherwise, I don't know what the teeth would look like. Okay. The whole concept of value systems, a characteristic of a person, character of a person in halachic terms are called midos. A midah is a measure in Hebrew. Midah means we speak honest weights and measures. They're called midos. The way you behave, that's called a midah. That means your behavior has to be measured. It's not just what you want. It's not reflexive behavior. I have an attitude. I'm upset. I respond and say anything I want. Everything is measured. Everything's controlled. Even though you want to say many other things, you don't say many things that you should not say. Everything, those are midos. Everything's a measure. Your level of mercy, compassion for another person. Everything's measured. Like the Rambam writes, a person, he has an open hand for everyone. That's not a midah. It's like you have a vat that has 1,000 gallons and it has a hole in it, and everything's just leaking out. To have an open hand without being discerning, this yes, that not. So you're generous. No, you're foolish. You don't give to anybody. You do your due diligence. And if you don't, you give a small amount, not something large, until you see it's something worthy to support. So everything is with a level of calculation. That's midah. And that's the way a Jew has to live his life. Everything is calculated. Our lives have to be exacting within ourselves. And that's only possible if you have focus. You have no focus, person has double vision. You put your finger here and you put your finger, you're touching something else than what you believe you're touching. Because you don't have the focus. How many people are focused? Certain things, they're very focused. Comes to making money, some people, they don't miss a beat. In their personal lives, disastrous. They've been married 6 times. You walk into the house, if they don't have a housekeeper, you couldn't walk into the house. You'd be drowning in their clothing, or the clothing that weren't taken to the cleaners. But when it comes to making that dollar, they don't miss a beat. They even have that first dollar they ever earned. So a person himself, there was a story many years ago, not so many years ago. There was a very holy Kabbalistic rabbi, and somebody came to see him, and he murdered him. He was one of the Abu Chatzeris. This person came in and he had a private audience with him, and he took a knife and he plunged it into his chest, and he killed him. And people were waiting to go in, and usually an audience was not more than half an hour. They went in, the man left, and they went in, they found this person murdered. So they said that the murderer, he was unstable. Because could a person kill such a holy man with such vengeance, with such anger? It must be he's not balanced. So they shared this with Rav Steinman, who was leading Torah sage. He said the man is not. He's not unbalanced. Because the Talmud says a person who takes money and he throws it in the ocean, or he takes his clothing and tears his clothing, and it behaves irrationally in his life, that person's unbalanced. If this person, you give him $10,000 cash, is he going to throw into a fire? Is he going to take his garment and shred his garment? He's not. The answer is he's normal. And the man is a murderer. That's what he is. Don't try to somehow sideswipe and say he's something other than that. Other areas of his life, he's perfect. He's right on track. Same thing I'm saying. If a person could be so exacting, he doesn't miss a beat when it comes to earn $1. So why can't you apply that same yardstick for your life and live a life of being responsible? The answer is because he has no interest. That's a choice. Because you've chosen, this is me, that's not me. That's the answer. So this speaks volumes of who the person really is. He's out of control. You chose to be out of control because you don't value it. You know, today we live in a one niche society. Like even doctors. One time you had a doctor who was an internist. Whether you had a neurological problem, whether you had an orthopedic problem, whatever you had, this doctor, he attended to everything. Today, no. Doctor, he attends to certain things. If you have an issue, you go to a specialist. Everything's a specialty today. Same thing. It's a niche society. My niche is I make money. As a human being, the only thing I don't do is walk on 4, walk on 2, in the upright position. But why? You have so many other abilities that you could maximize on them, and you can take advantage of those gifts which you're endowed with. Interest, they have no interest. No interest whatsoever. How do you mistreat people? Well, I'm out of control. What do you mean out of control? If you value the other person, you're not out of control. The man who you can make money with, you don't mistreat that person. Why? So when you want to be discerning, you could be discerning. The answer is because you don't value the other person's existence. That's the answer. So we continue to give it away. It's a giveaway. Due to your behavior, certain times you discern, certain times you don't discern. That's what it's all about. So how do you somehow sensitize yourself to what we're talking about? Only one way. First of all, you have to have a teacher. You have to have a mentor. You have to study the right subject matter. You have to have the right environment. But the subject we're studying is Torah itself. Because Torah is an infusion of spirituality. It's able to temper the animal. Every human being is an animal. Every one of us is an animal. We have every animalistic drive within ourselves. Our inclinations are animalistic inclinations. The only thing that could tame it or could harness it is only if it has a spiritual infusion. It's like a sedative. Take a sedative, you calm down. The spiritual infusion, the mitzvah, this type of mentoring allows a person to take control of his life. Shlomo Amel says, Ner mitzvah Torah or. What's the illuminator? The Torah is the illuminator. You see it. You know, we say seeing is believing. Not understanding is believing. Seeing. The Torah gives you the ability to see. Torah or. It's an illuminator. It illuminates. Illumination means you're able to internalize it to see the reality of certain things. Why certain things are acceptable, certain things are not acceptable. Many years ago, a certain rabbi in Manhattan, he had a PhD in philosophy. he grew his hair long in the back, when he was like a professor. And it said on the board in front of on the shul, not rabbi, doctor, doctor, rabbi. You understand? Speaks volumes. The doctor preceded the rabbi. Okay. So he once said to me, maybe they should institute in universities, they should teach ethics, how people should behave. What did I think about it? I said, it's not going to work. You understand? Why wouldn't it work? Because it's purely abstract knowledge. Ethics, when you teach ethics, you have to have role models. You have to have a conducive environment. You have to have many factors simultaneously going on to be able to relate, to see the value of that ethic. It's like speaking about ancient civilizations that had certain morals and ethics. Has no relevance to you. Same idea. Any comments?
Rabbi, midot also translated as attributes?
Attributes too. Predilections, attributes, whatever you want to call it.
Predilections are different, I would think, because predilections are animalistic.
Predilections can be inborn traits of predilections. They can be positive, they can be negative.
They're instinct, no? Inborn predilections are instincts.
Yes, it's inclinations. It's inclinations.
Inclinations, right.
Yeah. Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, Rabbi, it's interesting. Yesterday you gave us a really interesting explanation for the three pillars: the Torah and
service and
service. Yeah, but you did explain in a beautiful way why Torah became first, and it made all the sense. I agree, but I'd be interested in understanding why service is before acts of kindness, when you might think God would say, go out and do kind things, leave me for last. In case you miss one for some odd reason, I'm okay. Go out and help your fellow man. Is there any explanation for that one?
First, what is service? What is tefillah? You supplicate. You pray to God. What do you pray? The God knows your needs. If he knows your needs, what do you have to ask God to address your needs? Because if you don't ask for it, that means you take it for granted. If God would provide your healing and your material, everything, what do you attribute it to? If you ask, that means it's not me. It's not because I have an ingenious IQ and I have an understanding of finance. That's why I succeed. If I'm asking, I'm only succeeding because you will allow me to succeed. Because you will give me the blessing. You'll give me the healing. You'll give me the understanding. You'll give me the insight. It's not due to my genius. Everything in life is an endowment. Okay? So tefillah, even if we do acts of kindness, we talk about you have means. You have ability. Now, why? The Gemara tells us, the Talmud tells us, even when you do an act of kindness, what happens if the people approach you, they're charlatans, and they mislead you? So even though you're doing an act of kindness, but in terms of value, it doesn't accomplish much, because the person who came to you is not real. He's not really a needy person. He misled you, or he's unworthy of that. But he presented himself. So when you speak about, you have to be worthy, even when you do an act of kindness, that the recipient should be an appropriate person to receive it. So based on your acknowledgement of where it all starts from, that will determine who you are. And based on that, that will determine the quality of your love and kindness.
And also, Rabbi, if I could ask you, because, a little knowledge is dangerous. I happen to read something that's so typical of my character flaw. So apparently being overly merciful or overly kind, this is not good either. There is a story in this that is in Irving Bunham's explanation here that says someone was told to kill the Amalekites, but let the king live. And because he let the king live, then the Amalekites thrived. So
Right.
overly merciful is not a good characteristic either. Is that correct?
It depends where it's coming from. A person values Torah. It says you should not give more than 20% to charity. Why? Rabbinically, why? Because you're giving charity to help a person who's needy. But if you overstep and you weaken your financial base, you're trying to help another person who's in need although he's poor, but you understand, you may end up in the poorhouse yourself if you overextend yourself when giving charity. Therefore, what's safe? Safe is 20%. As long as you don't give more than 20%, you're still in a safe place. You go beyond that, you may be putting yourself in jeopardy, and you put yourself in the poorhouse. Therefore, rabbinically, they said you should not give more than 20%. If you're exceptionally wealthy, it's a different story. You can even give 50%. Because there's so much left, you're not weakening your financial base. Okay, but that's the law. So I'm saying if I support something because it's worthy of that level of support. Somebody may think it's excessive, but it's not excessive. I'll give you an example. God forbid a relative needs a very type of specific surgery and it costs $100,000, but the person will be able to live. Somebody says, don't you think that you pay too much? We're talking about saving a person's life. That person that's not his relative, it seems to be excessive. But when it's a necessity and it determines whether the person lives or dies, that's not excessive. It depends where you're coming from, how you value that particular expenditure. You're being overly generous. That's overly generous. If you understand the value, person makes an investment, a fortune. But the investor understands what the return on that investment is going to be because he did his due diligence. The other guy who doesn't even know what it's about, he says, seems to be this guy's giving away too much. But if you appreciate and understood the deal, you understand it's not too much in terms of what the return is going to be. So everything is based upon whether you know or you don't know.
Right. Third quick question, Rabbi, if I may, because I happen to do it. Is sitting quietly in the morning, if you have spare time, and reading Pirkei Avos, might you consider that? I don't know if it's fair to pin it on you, but might it be considered a form of studying Torah for the sake of spending time?
No,
It is.
of course it's studying Torah. Definitely studying Torah. Pirkei Avos is part of Torah. That's part of the oral law.
I mean, if it comes out of this particular kind of volume,
doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference. It could be in it could be in whatever it is. In hieroglyphics, you can read it. As long as the subject matter is Torah.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Rabbi, I never understood 20% of what? Before taxes, after you have left over from after you pay your bills? 20% of what?
We're talking about net. Whatever your net earnings are, you give 20%. That's
Okay,
after all the expenditures. Let's talk about net profit. Of that, you're supposed to give 10% charity, but you should not give more than 10, more than 20. But if you're very wealthy, then you consult with somebody, with a rabbi. He'll tell you what you could do, what you can't do. Or consult with your accountant also. It's important. Okay. Bob was a financial planner here.
Thank you for the plug, Rabbi.
He's in retirement today. He was so sought after. He had to retire, take early retirement. Okay.
Only from some things. I'm still doing other things where it doesn't require me to be watching a TV screen for 12 hours a day.
Yeah, good, Baruch Hashem. Now you're on a Zoom screen, not a. See that? You're humble. You were silenced now, Bob. Okay. Malachi, what do you say?
Oh, thank you for sharing all of this. I think what's kind of ringing in my head is an experience that I had earlier this week. I was working with someone who I haven't seen in probably 2 years. And the last time I'd met him, um, let's just say he's also a Jewish veterinarian, and but I think we optimize and value different things in life. And so I was thinking, how our conversations, I don't remember all the exact details of what we spoke about in the clinic and our cases and stuff and the day that we shared. But I remember kind of the overarching theme was he was optimizing for financial security. And that's fine and all, but I do feel as though there are aspects of his life that could be enriched, and family and spirituality and things like that, which there didn't seem to be as much of a touch point when I kind of skirted the conversation in that direction. So I haven't seen him in a year and a half. Came back to work in his hospital, and you know, I'm sure he's doing very well in one aspect of life, but I think it's really what we do and what we prioritize. And always, there's a quote that the author of Catch 22, Joseph Heller, he was like visiting some billionaire's island for a party or something. And the guy next to him was like, how does it make you feel that your novel that, got all this critical acclaim and awards and money and royalties, whatever, that this billionaire makes more than what your book has earned in its entire lifetime of publication? And Joseph Heller was like, he told his friend, I have something this billionaire can never have. And that's the satisfaction that I know what enough is. I have enough. And it kind of harkens back to a lot of what Larry's talking about in Pirkei Avos, ethics of our fathers, and Ezehu Ashir. And I think just knowing that we can be satisfied with minimal physical things in life, and as long as we can provide for ourselves and make do. But then, to Beth's point and that which you've been talking about, being able to give, because I feel like thinking of ourselves actually, it's not even paradoxical. It makes us the happiest when we're able to give to what we're able. And so anyway, that was a quote that I heard a few years back that really resonates with me.
You know why the billionaire is not satisfied with the billion? Because he's not content in life. If you're content, then you say, I have enough. You're not content. The money, if the $1 billion doesn't make you content, evidently the money is not what it's all about. So that's all that is. That's a distraction. It's a distraction. Because if you are content, you'd be busy with what you're content with, not with all this other stuff. Shmuel, what do you say?
I just want to get back to the thing about, as a Jew, we need to be precise. And I definitely agree with that, because we have to know exactly when we can pray. We need to know when Shabbos starts, when it ends. We need to know when Rosh Chodesh starts. Yeah, I guess I didn't appreciate it, but yeah, we have to be precise about a lot of things in our life. And it's a good point to bring up. It's exacting.
Yeah. And some
We're still
people
recording,
get
right?
out of bed till 11 o'clock. They have no order in their lives. And they live through life, they just drift through life. And they only do things when they have no choice, they have to do them. So when they're younger, they have to do certain things. Once they get older and they're able to do that, again, there's no order in their life. Because they only were forced to have order because otherwise they couldn't survive when they were younger. They get older, they revert back to what? To their bad habits. Because you only behave because you have no choice, you have to behave. But now that you're no longer able to behave, because it's not a necessity, then you revert back to something you're totally out of control. There is no order. Okay. I think we've not exhausted the subject, but for today, I think we've discussed it sufficiently.
I think you're still recording. Rabbi.
Okay.
You'll have to.
Can I ask a quick comment of Malachi,
Yeah, go ahead.
which is not religious? So in the New York Times, you've heard of that newspaper, there was an article yesterday that Dolce and Gabbana has made a perfume for dogs, and vets are not terribly happy about it. Can I ask how you feel about it?
My wife's grandmother texted me that same article. I'm skeptical, and I think it's not. I mean, I don't know enough about it, but I don't think it's anything that I would invest in or recommend.
Good enough. Good enough.
Do the dogs need it? The dogs don't need it. So
Good
Larry,
enough. Thank you.
Larry,
Have you ever seen,
I
a woman was walking down the street the other day. It must have been about 98 degrees. And she had like a little jacket on the dog. So the winter, I understand, you feel the dog is cold, you put some kind of whatever it is, a protective coating on a coat on the dog. It's 90 degrees. The humidity is almost 100%. What are you putting a thing on the dog? This whatever it was. It wasn't a raincoat, I don't know what it was about.
So nice of you to be so sensitive about the dog, Rabbi. Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks
So
again, Rabbi.
I just want to bring out a point.
Yeah.
Perfume. At one time, only women wore perfume. Men didn't wear perfume. And there were two things. There was perfume and there was toilet water. It was a different type of perfume. Each one served a different purpose. A woman has certain excretions from her body which cause certain odor, which a man does not have. I read about this years ago. She would wear this toilet water to cover up that scent, which was not a pleasant scent. That's why she wore it, because a woman has certain excretions that a man does not have. Perfume already is something more than that. That's attraction. She should be attractive. Should be alluring. Just tell it. The dog, today they advertise, it's a good thing to invest cat litter. Cat litter, there's no odor and this and that. And they keep coming. We look at two types of cat litter. So there's no odor in your house. Especially when you have your cat, you have a double mattress in your master bedroom for your cat. For the feline, okay, so you need that. You have to have that cat litter that there's no odor. I'm saying this facetiously, jokingly. But again, the perfume is really for the master, not for the dog. The dog doesn't need it. That if a dog has certain odor, I don't think it takes care of fleas. You sleep with a dog, get up with fleas. That's what happens. Okay.
I didn't know there was actually an explanation about the perfume. It's kind of interesting, actually.
Yeah. It's not my observation. I once read about this.
I don't know if this is the right time and place, but I could share with you a very quick snippet. I don't want to keep anyone hostage on the Zoom here, but I did see a interesting case last week, which I had never seen before, which was a male dog. It was 2 weeks ago. A male dog, that 9-year-old dog, neutered, not by me, but was not reproductively intact, but interestingly had prominent mammary glands. And I noted it to the owner on the exam, and she actually she was taking what
it had a prominent, what do you say, memory?
Nipples. His nipples were the male dog's nipples were enlarged, and the reason why is because through learning and asking a little bit more questions, because I'm not going to ask specifically an owner of this, but she volunteered that he was taking a hormone replacement therapy, and it was a spray on her body, and the dog slept with her. And so it can go both ways in terms of fleas transmitting, parasites to humans or vice versa. So there's definitely
This woman was not living with her dog, was she?
No, sleeping in the same bed, just sleeping in the same bed.
Today in today's society, people commit bestiality with animals.
Oh my! I mean, I hope to God not, but no, I'm fairly certain it was just simply that they shared the same space. But Mechila, if that was not appropriate to bring up, but the point is, it's definitely not. I'm not advocating for these transmission of whether it's parasites or certain odors or whatnot. It's it's not for the best.
Wow.
Yeah, but anyway, little weird thing that I encountered.
Okay,
So-
see now, Shmuel does have to read her Bambach, whatever her name is. She has your information now. Okay, Shmuel, you can pass it on.
Okay, yeah, I got one thing. My father used to say he gave up toilet water because the toilet kept hitting him in the head.
Okay.
Rabbi,
That's
thank you
great.
so much for
Bye, Miguel.
learning with us today.
Thanks,
you.
Rabbi. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, Rabbi.